Hello, my name is Andrew Crocker. I teach political science at OTC, and I am a co-sponsor for Politically Active, a nonpartisan student group committed to promoting political literacy, not just of our student body, but of the community. And what you're watching is an introduction to Tuesday, November 8th, midterm election ballot. We have an incredibly important series of choices for you voters, and most voters, when they show up to their midterm election ballot, that's the first time they've seen the issues on the ballot. Let's prevent that from happening for you. Over the next however long, a series of students, all of them from Politically Active and one from me, will walk you through national races, state level races, and local races. Everything from control of Congress all the way down to judges locally, local candidates for local offices that you might not even be aware exist or what they even do. So strap in, and for the next however long, let us take a moment to introduce you to the ballot that you're going to be voting on November 8th.
For only the fourth time in United States history, the Congressional Senate is equally divided between the two main political parties, thus making this race one of the most important ones on the ballot this year. Running as a Democratic candidate, former nurse Trudy Bush Valentine promises to fight conspiratorial thinking and science denialism, specifically on climate and healthcare policy. She will prioritize finding a solution to the opioid epidemic and the rising burden of inflation on the working class. She wishes to pass legislation protecting Missouri farmland from being bought up by Chinese Communist Party-owned corporations. Lastly, she is looking to pass a federal law to protect abortion as a human right. Presently serving as Missouri's Attorney General, the Republican candidate Eric Schmitt believes that Missouri needs lawmakers that will prioritize America first. He states that his service as the Attorney General was instrumental in the Missouri government's partnership with the Trump administration for achieving that goal. Eric Schmitt is committed to religious freedoms, family values, and protecting free thought from cancel culture. He promises to protect Missourians from media censorship by big tech corporations, job-sacrificing policies by the Biden administration, and the risks of dual-use research, which he believes could result in another pandemic. Like his election opponent, Eric Schmitt is committed to protecting America from unscrupulous action by the Chinese Communist Party. Finally, running under the Constitution Party, Paul Venable believes that America is in the midst of a legal crisis caused by the Democratic conspiracy to manipulate elections. He believes that his core political philosophy of a strict interpretation of the Constitution will enable him to fight the Democrats in the U.S. Senate and resolve this crisis.
On November 8th, we Missourians will be voting for an open House of Representatives seat for District 7, covering most of Southwest Missouri. The longtime standing Representative Billy Long will be replaced by one of the following candidates that we will be discussing today. First of those candidates is Republican Eric Burleson. Burleson began his political career back in 2009 when he began representing the 133rd District in the Missouri House of Representatives. He continued his position there until 2017. In 2019, he was elected state senator for the 20th Senatorial District in Missouri, where he has served until today. On August 2nd of this year, he won the Republican nomination for the House seat in the primary elections. Of his listed values and focuses for his campaign, he defines himself as a dedicated family man, proven leader, and proud conservative. His running phrase is, "As a constitutional conservative, I am fighting each and every day to defend our God-given rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." If elected, Burleson is focused on several things which he claims to have been fighting for his entire time in our state legislature. Things like the Second Amendment, helping small businesses, cutting taxes, protecting family values, election security, and good health care. He boasts of having a top conservative rating by several groups and is unafraid to support former President Trump's America First agenda, which he says will slash taxes, create jobs, protect our borders, and adhere to the principles of the Constitution. Overall, Eric Burleson promises to take the fight to Washington and will stand up for Southwest Missouri's Christian family values. Also, after the August primaries, Kristen Reniker-Schaefer won the Democratic nomination for the 7th District ballot. While she has held no prior political office, she values a true representation of the constituents of Southwest Missouri. Reniker-Schaefer states that she is running for office because of her creativity, problem-solving skills, collaborative attitude, and ability to find common ground. She has had a successful small business in Joplin, Missouri for a few years now and has always had a heart for standing up for those around her. If elected, her focuses will be to hold government accountable, provide open and clear communication to her constituents. She plans to do this through small steps to progress by single-issue pragmatic bills, finding creative solutions by using the knowledge and diversity of the American people, communicate the pros and cons of each article of legislation and the impacts it might have, foster bipartisanship by finding practical solutions and not passing blame, helping legislation and bills stay smaller, related, and easy to understand. She also wants to help small businesses by keeping things truly local and small while also using tax incentives, guidance, and resources to help the local economy of District 7. Another one of her focuses are the needs of high-speed internet, cybersecurity, and the welcoming of refugees into our country and local areas. Since Kristen Radiker Schaefer has been a small business owner and longtime friend to the people of Southwest Missouri, she believes that she will do well to provide clear and helpful representation of our 7th District in the U.S. House of Representatives.
We will be choosing from 3 candidates this November to take the role of state auditor. Independent of any executive or administrative officers of the state, the auditor works to ensure the proper use of public funds and to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of the Missouri government. The audits are used to examine financial accountability, waste, opportunities for fraud, and whether government organizations and programs are achieving their purpose. Running as the Republican candidate, Scott Fitzpatrick, presently serving as the State Treasurer of Missouri, promises to protect the taxpayers by fighting waste, fraud, and public funding of illegal immigration. Guided by his conservative principles, Scott Fitzpatrick plans to improve state oversight of the local government performance and Missouri school districts. Running as the Democratic candidate, Dr. Alan Greene values making independent choices with unquestionable integrity based on the interest of Missouri citizens. His goal as auditor is to advocate for innovative new ideas and approaches that will hold Missouri government officials accountable and will allocate taxpayer funds more effectively. Dr. Alan Greene has previously served in the Missouri House of Representatives from 2014 to 2021. Libertarian candidate John Hartwick Jr. has experience in auditing from a long career of professional accounting. Committed to the principle of holding government office temporarily, he promises to only serve one term in which he plans to initiate a review of the state priorities for auditing various Missouri agencies and counties. This will be done with the intent of considering an audit of any particular entity at the request of Missouri taxpayers.
In Missouri, voters have the right to decide whether or not to retain judges at the local, district, and state level. If you vote for retention, judges will have the ability to hold their seats for another term. And if you vote against retention, the judge will retire and the seat will be filled by another appointee confirmed by the Missouri General Assembly. On the November 8th ballot, 7 judges are up for retention. For the Missouri Supreme Court, Justices Zell M. Fisher, who has served since 2008, and Robin Ransom, who was recently appointed in 2021. For the Southern Appellate Court District, the Honorable Don Burnell, who has also served since 2008, and Jack Goodman, appointed in 2020, are also up for retention. Finally, for the 31st Circuit Court here in Greene County, we have Margaret Palmetto, appointed in 2015, Mark Powell, appointed in 2000, and T. Todd Myers, appointed in 2020. It is worth noting that all 7 judges serve under the nonpartisan court plan and are graded by the Judicial Performance Review Committee as substantially meeting all judicial performance.
Every 20 years, voters will have the chance to decide whether or not to continue using the existing Missouri Constitution. If the vote decides against, then a new state constitution will be drafted in a Constitution Convention. This midterm, Missourians will once again be faced with this decision. Those in favor of throwing out the current Constitution say that after so many years of amending the Constitution over minor legal matters that should have been handled by more conventional legislative means, the document has hence been bloated with irrelevant and outdated content. Opponents, however, believe that it would be irresponsible to rewrite such a significant document during a period of heightened political polarization.
On the midterm ballot, Amendment 1 will authorize increased investment paths for the state treasurer. Currently, under Missouri Constitution, the state treasurer can and does invest some of Missouri tax dollars into federal agency bonds, time deposits in Missouri banks, repurchase agreements, bankers' acceptance, or short-term unsecured corporate debt. If passed, Amendment 1 would allow the state treasurer to invest in highly rated municipal securities, specifically securities that possess one of the 5 highest rated long-term ratings, or the highest short-term rating. Along with this, Amendment 1 would allow the state legislature to pass laws to allow the treasurer to invest in other reasonable and prudent financial investments and securities. Currently, the state legislature has no power to do such things. Proponents of this proposal state that Missouri government entities estimate no cost and increased revenue of $2 million per year, and local government entities estimate no cost and increased revenue of $34,000 per year.
Hello, it's not 420, but I'm here today to talk to you all about cannabis-related voting this November 8th. Here's the scoop. Legal Missouri 2022 sponsored this thing called Amendment 3, and it's about to be on the ballot. It proposes that adults 21 years and older will be allowed to purchase, possess, consume, and grow cannabis, with up to 3 ounces recreationally and up to 6 ounces for medicinal users, as well as the provision to expunge criminal records of individuals with non-violent cannabis-related offenses, meaning that all non-violent offenders of cannabis-related crimes will have their records absolutely erased, and the police can focus on fighting against violent crime. Additionally, this amendment ensures a 6% sales tax on legal cannabis, which would go directly to court cases, legal fees related to expungement, substance abuse mistreatment programs, veteran health care, and the public defense system in the state. How neat! This amendment would additionally promote the creation of many small businesses, make medicinal cards valid for 3 years, and allow nurse practitioners to certify. However, it is important to note that while this amendment does propose the legalization of recreational Mary Jane, driving under the influence of cannabis will remain illegal regardless. So clear your calendar and cast your vote this November 8th. See you at the ballot!
Amendment 4 on your ballot asks, shall the Missouri Constitution be amended to authorize laws before December 31st, 2026 that increase minimum funding for a police force established by a state board of police commissioners to ensure such police force have additional resources to serve its community. This is a tricky amendment because people do not fully understand what it means. If you read that, you just think it's all about raising pay for police. But that's not what it's asking. It's asking, should the state of Missouri be able to tell Kansas City to pay more for its own police force? See, the key language is, do we want to increase funding for a police force established by a state board of police commissioners? Now, the state board is a board of people put together by the governor of Missouri, and their job is to determine policies and funding for police forces, but only for one city in Missouri, Kansas City. So Amendment 4 is asking, do we want Missouri to force Kansas City to pay more for their police force? That's what the question is. Now, state boards of police commissioners have existed since the 1800s here in Missouri. They have troubling historical roots. They really only applied at the time to Kansas City and St. Louis. Instead of local control, the state wanted to run those 2 police forces. You can probably guess the reasons why, since it was the 1800s. Since then, St. Louis has pulled itself away from the Board of Police Commissioners and now is in charge of its own police funding. Kansas City has yet to do that. And so what we saw in 2020 was a bunch of protests and riots across America, including Missouri, about police force and how best to allocate resources for our police. Is it best to continue shoveling tens and tens of millions of dollars to police forces? Or is it best to invest in alternative service communities, like increasing mental health or having alternative emergency respondents rather than just police to every emergency? Kansas City joined that movement by trying to reallocate about $40 million from their police force to various services, and the state board, once again established by the governor of Missouri, was not a fan. So as a result, Amendment 4 has presented itself for us to decide whether Missouri or Kansas City should be in charge of Kansas City PD funding. Now, in the Missouri Constitution, there is a rule, and it says the state of Missouri cannot force cities to do things without the state paying for them. That's called an unfunded mandate, and it's unconstitutional. Well, Amendment 4 is technically asking for an exception to that rule. And so, at the end of the day, we are asking, once again, if Missouri can force Kansas City, against their will, to pay their police more through additional taxes or whatever. Now, you don't get that from the language, but that's the question being presented. This will not impact the taxes of anybody in Missouri, except, of course, for the citizens of Kansas City.
With the responsibility of protecting Missouri during times of crisis, the state's National Guard has operated under Missouri's Department of Public Safety ever since 1974. But due to funding competition between the Guard and other components of the department, the sustainability of this arrangement has been called into question. This midterm, voters will have the responsibility of answering that question. Voting yes on Amendment 5 will allow for the creation of a 16th department of the Missouri government, one specifically dedicated to the National Guard. Supporters of the proposal advertise that this will allow for a more efficient line of communication between Guard leadership and the governor, as well as an end to the funding tug-of-war. Opponents, however, believe that this measure is an expansion of power for the Missouri executive branch and the National Guard simultaneously. They say that there should always be an appropriate level of division between government and military leadership.
Having previously lost the rights to develop in a 2018 lawsuit due to existing zoning restrictions, the question of whether or not to remove such restrictions through a rezoning measure will be placed in the hands of Springfield voters. Elevation Enterprises LLC wishes to construct a commercial project bringing apartments, restaurants, and retail to the area. This plan has been endorsed by multiple city officials, and due to the architectural considerations by the developer, will be beneficial to the residents of Galloway Village. Some residents, however, remain unconvinced. They think that the reduction of the tree line will cause the property not to increase in value, but to decrease instead. This is why Citizens' Petition of 2018 garnered over 2,000 signatures expressing that desire for this project to be canceled. This is why a Citizens' Petition for 2018 garnered over 2,000 signatures expressing their desire for this project to be canceled. Presently, the zoning laws prevent Elevation Enterprise from continuing the project, but with question 1 being included on the Springfield ballot, it will be the voters who ultimately decide not only on the zoning revisions, but whether or not this development will continue.